All right, good morning, hello, good afternoon, depends on what time you're listening to this, so on and so forth. Let's look at slopes of lines. Today you will find slopes of lines and you will use a slope to identify parallel and perpendicular lines. So something that you should be fairly familiar with. All right, so by definition, what is a slope? The slope is, by definition, the ratio of change along the y-axis to the change along the x-axis. In other words, it's the change in y over the change in x, the rise over the run, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. By the way, keep in mind that this means right here, that's a symbol, delta. That means change in. Okay, so that's a shorthand way of saying like change in y over change in x. In other words, subtract the y's over subtract the x's. Whoops. Okay, so let's look at some examples. Okay, so here we got, for part A point, -1, -2, and another point, 3, 3, and we want to find the slope between the two. Now, by literal definition, it should be subtract the second y's, second x, minus, or second y minus the first y, second x minus the first x. But honestly, as long as you got the points together, the order is not really that big of a deal. You could say y1 minus y2, x1 minus x2, kind of go from there. But you're going to see these done like this. And again, there is a way to do this on the calculator, which I can show y'all if you'd like. Otherwise, you can do it by hand. You should get 5 over 4 and you're done. Simplify it if you need to, but there you go. Here's another example. We're going to subtract again. Notice in all these examples, all we're going to do is subtract. If you end up one that comes out even, you can leave it as a non-fraction, but I mean, it depends on what you really need to do. So let's look at the next one. You can see here, this one is going to end up with a 0 on top. That means you have an answer of 0. But if you end up with a 0 on the bottom, you have an answer of undefined. So just kind of keep that in mind. What is the difference between those two? Notice that when it's 0 on top, it's okay. But if it's 0 on the bottom, because you can't divide by 0, it's undefined. So we have basically 4 types of slopes. We have positive slopes, negative slopes, 0 slopes, and undefined slopes. Now notice positive slopes, they go up as we go from left to right. Negatives, they go down as we go from left to right. 0 slopes is just a horizontal line, and undefined is a vertical line. Okay, so now we want to make sure that we get this postulates 3.2, which is the slopes of parallel lines, and 3.3, which is slopes of perpendicular lines. So don't forget, if they have the same slope, they're parallel. If they have if you multiply, obviously they don't have the same slope, they're not parallel. But if you multiply the two slopes and you get an answer of -1, then that would be perpendicular. So let's look at another example here. Okay, so we're going to take these 4 points and we're going to find the slope between A and B, and we're going to find the slope between C and D. So the slope for A and B is going to be +3. Okay, and then the slope for CD, if I do the subtraction and everything, is going to be -1/3. So I can tell here they're not the same, so they could be perpendicular. Now, obviously, perpendicular also is the opposite reciprocal, but I mean, if you it's simple just to go, okay, 3 times -1/3, positive times a negative is negative, 3 times 1/3 is just 1, so I get -1, so that means it is perpendicular. So this one is perpendicular based on postulate 3.3. Okay, so the next one. All right, so for the next one, let's see, I'm going to subtract here 2 and 6, and -9 and 3, and I get -4 over -12, which is 1+1/3. For C and D, 3 and 4, 2 and 5, I get -1 over -3, which is +1/3 also. So these two have the same slope, so they are parallel by postulate 3.2. And that's really about it. Like I said, this is something you should already be able to do and you should already know. So that's it for today, and we will look at the final one, which talks about slopes of lines for this unit, and we should be ready for a test soon. Thank you so much for your time. Y'all take care.